abuse. It called on the church to remove all clergy suspected of raping or molesting children. The report was ordered after pedophilia scandals that have rocked the Roman Catholic Church in recent years.
The Holy See has adopted policies and practices which have led to the continuation of the abuse by and the impunity of the perpetrators. The Holy See has consistently placed the preservation of the reputation of the Church and the protection of the perpetrators above children's best interests.
The Vatican said Wednesday that it would study the damning UN report, accusing it of failing to stamp out child abuse, but slammed criticism of its religious teachings as interference. The report followed a landmark hearing last month during which a committee of independent experts grilled senior churchmen and repeatedly questioned the Vatican's resolve.
Well, the report is absolutely incredibly scathing. It's a devastating report for the Vatican because it basically says that the Vatican systematically kept the procedures in place that allowed children to be abused over the course of decades.
The report said tens of thousands of children worldwide had been abused systematically for years within the Catholic Church. Victims' associations around the world praised the report.
Esto es un respiro.
This is a respite, and beyond that, as I mentioned, it is recognition of the fact that we have always told the truth. We have not been lying, despite all the campaigns against us.
Last month, the Vatican revealed that 400 priests accused of pedophilia were forced to leave the priesthood during the pontificate of previous Pope Benedict XVI.
Burundi has celebrated the 20th anniversary of its unity charter amidst a boycott by the main Tutsi party, which is engaged in a power struggle with the Hutu-dominated government of Pierre Nkurunziza. The peace charter was intended to unite the two main groups who have fought each other for control of the country. The ensuing political impasse risks plunging the country into instability as both sides harden their positions.
Wednesday celebrated the 23rd anniversary of its Unity Charter, but unity has been somewhat strained. No member of UPRONA, the main Tutsi party, attended the ceremony. The party is engaged in a power struggle with the Hutu-dominated government. 3 UPRONA cabinet members recently resigned in reaction to the sacking of the country's vice president, a member of UPRONA.
Instead of building fraternity, we are fighting. It's really a shame. We risk following the devil instead of God.
The Charter on National Unity was adopted in a referendum in 1991. The aim was to bring Hutus and Tutsis closer together. But it did not prevent the outbreak of a bloody civil war 2 years later. People are afraid once again. The first vice president and the head of UPRONA, both Tutsis, are in hiding and fear for their lives.
Mutual understanding is a catalyst of national unity. Each time this catalyst is set aside, national unity is disrupted. In order to reassert national unity, we need to create a climate of friendliness, to communicate, debate, and discuss.
The crisis is a serious one. It risks completely undermining the Arusha Peace Accord, a fragile political compromise signed in 2000 between Burundi's Tutsis and Hutus.
Protesters in Niger have taken to the streets to express their displeasure against the French uranium mining giant Areva. They accuse the company of flouting a law passed in 2006 which obliges Areva to pay more for the uranium. Meanwhile, critics have accused the company of having a colonialist attitude of exploiting the natural resources of Niger, which is one of the poorest countries in Africa.
Uranium. It was the second protest held this month against the French nuclear giant Areva, which operates in the north of the country. Protesters accuse the company of flouting the law. They are demanding that Areva abide by the regulations set down in Niger's 2006 mining code.
We demand that the government enforce the law because the price of uranium has fallen. Areva forgets that it has exploited Niger for years to get its uranium. Let it pay the full price.
The ecologist Noel Mamer said he was shocked by Areva's behavior in Niger. The ecologist noted a colonialist attitude on the part of the company.
We should not forget that in France, 1 of every 3 light bulbs works because of uranium from Niger, that 90% of people in Niger still have no electricity, and that Niger is classed among the world's least developed nations.
The demands of Niger's protesters may have found a sympathetic ear with the French government, which has promised to do all it can to ensure that the negotiations between Areva and Niger are mutually beneficial.
This government wants any new balanced deal that is struck to be compatible with Niger's development. The development of Niger is in our interest.
On Saturday, Areva resumed activities at 2 of its mines where contracts are due to expire. Discussions are now underway to renew those contracts. If Niger's government pressures Areva to comply with the law, government royalties from the mines will more than double, rising from the current 5.5% to 12%.
We now take a second break. Stay tuned. And before we end this edition of the news, a quick reminder of our headlines. The President, His Excellency, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh, has relieved Justice Mabel Ajimang of her appointment as Chief Justice of the Republic of the Gambia. The Ministry of Health today took delivery of 24 vehicles and 60 motorbikes at a ceremony presided over by Vice President Jai Saidi. The Vatican has come under the spotlight as the United Nations released a report questioning its role in covering of child abuse cases within the church. And protesters in Niger have been venting their anger at French uranium mining giant Areva for flouting a law that obligates the company to pay more for the uranium it exploits in the West African country. That's all in this edition of the news. We'll be back at 10 with another bulletin. Enjoy the sport programs meanwhile.
Tourism Board proudly presents the 2nd edition of the Food and Beverage Festival in the Smiling Coast of Africa, the Gambia. Date on Saturday and Sunday, February 8th and February 9th, 2014. The 2nd edition of the Food and Beverage Festival will be happening at the Green Mamba Gardens and Jacarlo Bar and Restaurant in Senegambia. Entertainment will be provided by the King of Kora, Jaliba Kuyate, and the Kumare Band will be present.
Food and Beverage Festival at home 8 and 9 meter laje avec kila sudo men de dialaba okana fo.
There will be live performances by Gambian artists, drummers, acrobats, singing competition, eating competition, wrestling competition, and many more. Prepare yourself for local and international cuisines, for they will be there in abundance. Entrance fee is only $100. Proudly sponsored by Banjul Breweries and
Lewato programme yu boré la buñ leen di isil alxamis bu nekk ci GRTS dama ne àndaleen nak Linguère GRTS mu isil leen lamba yi nga xam ne moom ngeen soxla dina fekki naka borekat yi ci seen tàggatukaay yaram yi waaye tamit dina waxtaan ak ñi nga xam ne xam lambi démba ak lambi